In the coming days, I expect to speak with Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov for the first time since the war began. I plan to raise an issue that's a top priority for us: the release of Americans Paul Whelan and Brittney Griner.
The long-awaited release could come at the cost of a high-value prisoner to the U.S. To get both of them back, the president has signed off on a trade. Brittney Griner and Paul Whelan for a notorious Russian arms dealer known as the Merchant of Death. That man's name is Victor Bout. He is currently serving 25 years here in the U.S. on terrorism charges.
Of course, the trade is not a new idea, but now it's gaining support from the State Department as well as the president. Paul Whelan's a Canadian-American, but he's been in a Russian prison since 2018 after being convicted of spying. Brittney Griner, of course, has been in a Russian jail since February after being arrested at the airport in Moscow on drug charges. The U.S. says both have been wrongfully detained. Griner has pleaded guilty but has yet to be sentenced. To finalize the deal, Russia says they must first finalize that trial. As far as Bout, he's a former Soviet military officer and a translator as well, who was convicted in 2011 of giving guns to terrorist groups as well as conspiring to kill American citizens. If the trade does in fact happen, this would be the second one done by the Biden administration this year. It was back in April that Trevor Reed was traded for Konstantin Yaroshenko, who was halfway through a 20-year sentence for conspiring to bring $100 million worth of cocaine into the United States.
There is a new awareness around opioid overdoses this year in Colorado. For months now, Denver residents can order Naloxone from the city. Naloxone is the medicine that quickly reverses the effect of an overdose. Recently, some businesses began to train their staff how to use it. Here's 9 News reporter Luis De Leon.
It may not be the first place you'd expect to see the life-saving medicine Naloxone. But the director of operations for Sexy Pizza says they've trained their employees on how to use it, with 2 more trainings scheduled for all of their Denver locations.
So I want to make sure that folks are armed and ready to go because we're in the worst overdose crisis we've ever been in.
That training comes from the Harm Reduction Action Center in Denver.
So we've probably been training businesses for the past few years, especially as the overdose crisis has increased.
Executive Director Lisa Rayville estimates they've trained around 10 businesses so far.
But we also talked to folks about having a syringe disposal in their bathrooms, how to recognize and respond to an overdose.
It comes at a time where overdose deaths are on the rise in Colorado. People who live in Denver can order doses of the life-saving medicine to carry on them. Denver's Department of Public Health and Environment says they've gotten nearly 5,000 requests for it. In the case of businesses, Rayville says if one reaches out to them to host a training, it's usually because of a recent incident.
It used to be cops coming up on people overdosing. Now it's 17-year-old baristas who are being re-triggered every day because they don't want to clean the bathroom before they go home because they've come up on somebody overdosing. So this is a larger community trauma issue.
So we have also talked about school districts starting to train staff to be ready to use Naloxone. They get it from the state health department. Out of the 178 districts in the state, CDPHE told me today that still just 5 districts are utilizing the program. That would be these 5 you see here: Boulder Valley, Cherry Creek, to name a few, Kim.
Yeah, and what's the wait time for turnaround, and what's the interest been like?
Right, so out of the 4,900 that you saw there, that number that you just saw there, it's still, the wait time is around a week or 2 still. They've delivered 4,800 of that 4,900 requests so far. Okay, schools, businesses, I can't imagine that helpless feeling if you come up on someone and, like she said, a barista or something.
Yeah. Oh, awful. All right, thank you, Luis.
Let's take a look outside as we get ready for our first look at the weather. Boy, this looks nice compared to what things looked and felt like last night. So let's get right over and talk with Lauren Robinson about what we saw last night and the potential for anything like it again today.
We saw a pocket of a good storm push through Denver, especially over downtown Denver late last night, and we do have a chance for that to happen again later tonight. Right now, though, it doesn't look too bad. We're pretty warm out there. We got to 91 degrees so far in Denver. Most of the Front Range and Eastern Plains in the upper 80s to low 90s. We're seeing low 90s across the western slope, 70s and 80s in the high country. But as we continue through the day, it looks like our air quality alert did just expire at 4 o'clock on the dot, so that's good news there. But we are going to continue to watch for these flood alerts. We have a flash flood watch that's going to be in effect over burn scar areas tomorrow, and then today and tomorrow we have a flood watches that'll be in effect mostly over south central, southwest, and west central areas of the state. Now, we do still have these very spotty showers pushing through, mostly south and west of Denver. But as we go through the rest of the evening, yes, we do have chances for another downpour over the metro as we go into the later hours. And then as these storms continue their way further eastward, they could become pretty strong as they make their way into the northeastern corner of the state, into the Nebraska Panhandle. So we're going to watch for both marginal and slight risk for severe weather as we go through the rest of the evening. So I'll have details on all of that, plus your full 7-day forecast just ahead.
Well, this afternoon, we get some very big Broncos ownership news. The NFL's Finance Committee unanimously recommending the Walton Penner Group's bid to buy the team. Of course, that really came as no surprise.
But now we have a date as far as when this all becomes like official, like we haven't been talking about it.
It's billions of dollars.
Yeah, the NFL owners are going to vote in 13 days, August 9th. Circle it on your calendar, and that's when they approve the sale. And then the new regime will move into their offices and take charge of the franchise.
The overnight stay was pretty rough. The rain came pretty hard, and luckily we had a tent, so that helped a lot.
We haven't had this excitement since Manning was here, and it's time for our 6-year-long drought to end.
Well, it wasn't a drought last night because it rained, but the other drought, right? From first-timers to longtime fans, hundreds of people showed up at Dove Valley this morning, early in the morning, to get their first glimpse of Russell Wilson practicing in a Broncos uniform. Like we saw, some fans slept out in front of the facility last night in the middle of a thunderstorm just to get right up to the barriers. It's clear everyone is pretty excited about this team.
So let's get right to our Broncos insider, Mike Kliss, down at training camp. He's in the Kliss Cave. And Mike, the fans' excitement, as we heard, is certainly much higher than it's been over these past few years. Russell Wilson today was playing right into that and feeding off of it as well.
Yeah, it was a crowd of a little more than 2,000. The way everyone showed up early, you expected a bigger crowd, but still it was an exuberant crowd. And Russell Wilson came out and he put on some kind of contraption around his knees to kind of strengthen his quads. And then he looked out at the crowd and he took off the contraption and went out there, and you're right, fed into the crowd, got high fives, went down the first row, got everybody excited. And it was a lively crowd, an energetic start for the Broncos today. And Russell Wilson had a pretty good first day.
Well, there's a lot to be done. You got a new coaching staff, new systems in place. Seemed like the tempo for morning practice was very high once the players actually got to work.
Yeah, they did. You know, it was the first time that they were on the practice field in 5.5 weeks. Kind of weird how the NFL schedules things. They work for 9 weeks in OTAs and mini camps, and then they take 5 weeks off, and then they start over again for training camp. And today was day 1 of training camp. And I thought the offense had the better of it against the defense. I'm not sure why that was, but Brett Rippon did real well coming off the bench or running with the number 2s. And not the number 3s. And Russell Wilson in the goal line red zone areas threw a couple of touchdowns also. He heated up later in the practice.
Well, your descriptions of it are very exciting. I think maybe later we'll be able to see
some video.
Yeah.
I want to see the contraption for the knees.
The knee contraption is
the knee contraption.
You know, it's like this rubber, these
the bands?
I don't know, rubber things.
It's the bands.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was a thicker band. It was a thicker, almost like a pipe that he was putting around his quads, and said, "To heck with that. Let's go meet the people." And he did a nice job there. Von Miller, of course, that was always his role in past years for the Broncos. He did it automatically. Russell had to think about it a minute and then realized, hey, I got to get out there and welcome everyone.
No, he just wanted to make sure the quads were ready.
And those thicker bands now with the Walton Penner Group, I mean, money is no object. They can afford as thick a band as they'd like. We are going to get a chance to see some of that stuff we're talking about a little bit later, and Mike will talk with you then. Thanks.
So congratulations to Broncos wide receiver Cortland Sutton. He's getting married. He announced his engagement to his longtime girlfriend, Bria Ridgway, on Instagram last night, saying, quote, "On July 25th, I asked my best friend if she would spend the rest of her life with me." The pair's really low-key about their relationship on social media, with the exception of a few posts, and that one was a really pretty, beautiful proposal.
Nice to see.
I like it.
Good way to get to camp.
And do it, do it a couple days before camp.
Now he's got to go to work.
Yeah.
Got to talk about money in a minute. The Federal Reserve taking another big step as they try to combat inflation.
what this means for you and your wallets.
Also, the president out of isolation says he's jumping right back into work at the Oval Office.